This is what we need to do. This is going to bring that school to the next level.
That's Thinkering. This Thinkering process is going to be really transformational to all subjects that we're talking about.
The value of the Alliance is it's a thinking collective. Now we have a greater understanding amongst everyone. And that's not what's common in schools.
I always tell our students this can set you apart, make you stand out, something to remember you by. It's an opportunity to share. It's win-win all around.
I think the biggest part of what we do are the humans that we work with on the other side of that, right? Really see the human impact, the way that they're interacting and working with their community.
It really does have to flip. You should be able to think about that as your hero's journey, to be able to know this is how I was able to overcome.
And I feel like continuing that mission is really important.
I was always a student that was intimidated by math. I was really smart, but for some reason math, still to this day, it's the same way. My mind just goes blank. I look at numbers, I see problems, word problems. Doesn't matter how it's presented, my mind just goes blank. And I think it's from anxiety and fear, because wasn't useful to me from my perspective, so I ignored it. And then by the time that I needed it, I had not paid attention for too long. I had missed too much. There wasn't that grace and room for me to go back and learn foundations. So, I got through math somehow, but geometry and trigonometry, for some reason, I would make A's hundreds on tests, and I couldn't explain to the teacher how I did the work. I didn't understand myself how I intuitively knew that kind of mathematics, but couldn't grasp other ones. So I'm curious if there's room for a series on what's it like for the fearful Jim to sit down with the tutor for children and see if he can learn to love math. And then 2, how does that tie in? Do you ever have adult learners who've used the software, or parents who've looked over their children's shoulder and just thought I need this, I could use this right now? How does it tie into the adult side of things?
Totally. No, we see one, let's get you a subscription for Synthesis Tutor, start using it. We'll deal with all that math anxiety, another major angle that we hit in our marketing, and one that we hear a lot from families, as I mentioned before, in that particular language, math anxiety. 2, I think what you're saying about trigonometry and about geometry, that's more embodied, it's more physical. And so there's more intuition to be built out of that. And so that sort of speaks to some of the benefits of the tutor, where you're always doing things and acting upon some physical embodiment of the numbers. The numbers are abstractions. And so we try to always concretize whatever it is. In terms of, so I think you do very well with the tutor, Jim. I think you'd love it. In terms of what we hear from adults is we do hear your standard, oh, I wish I was taught this way as a kid. This is really interesting. But we do hear even specific things. So we have a lesson on teaching. We were talking about base 10. We have a lesson on binary and base 3. Because actually understanding binary and even base 3, well, it lets you, once you have the mental model of it, you can do base anything. And as to how that's useful in the world, you're not going to use it in your life, but it's interesting. And it creates, it's flexible thinking. It's sort of puzzly. It makes you have to see things a different way. And it gives a funny context to do other types of addition and multiplication practice. Not going to get into it too much, but we do touch upon those kinds of interesting elements. And obviously the number of people that can explain binary to you, or especially base 3 is a very small percentage of people. So we'll see people be whoa, that was interesting. People that are mathy, that'll be whoa, that was interesting. I didn't know anything about base 2 or base 3. Now I do. One of the sort of more commonplace things that we hear is one of the lessons we have on square numbers, which is that a square number is a number that can be, if you arrange it geometrically, you can see it as a square. It's so a 4 is 2 by 2. 9 is 3 by 3, and you can see it as a square. And that's what makes these things square numbers, right? 16, obviously 4 by 4. And so a lot of people don't always make that connection that they're called square numbers because you can make a square out of them if you arrange them in an array. And so those are things that we hear families saying I just never, it's obvious to me when I hear it, but I never really thought about it. And so that's really interesting. I'm glad my kid is sort of, again, seeing the math that way. And then that also becomes a sticky point where it's well, if I remember a square number is arranged in an array that's square, well, then all these numbers are arranged in an array or can be arranged in an array, even if they're not squares. And so you can start to think of all your multiplication problems very visually, quickly like that. And that sort of becomes a touch point, a reference point for you to be able to get back into seeing things visually like that. So that's one of the things that that's those are a few examples of how we hear parents saying, yeah, this is a little more specific than, oh, I wish I learned this way, which, I'm sure that's commonplace across the ed tech system, is people having some adult somewhere saying, I wish I was taught this way. But with synthesis, I can give you like concrete examples of like, whoa, I really wish I was taught this way. Like, this is very interesting. And this sort of clarifies not just this one particular piece, but it clarifies a wider piece where, like, if you understand base 2, moving back up to how the base 10 system works is a lot easier to explain. And then same thing, like if you understand square numbers, then visualizing all multiplication problems as arrays is a lot easier to get to, because you have these really sticky reference points for yourself. So anyway, those are a few examples of that.
Yeah, you actually just blew my mind. Was one of those people who did not know that's why you call them square numbers. And that makes perfect sense, since there's the grid, visually see it. I can instantly do squaring of a lot faster now, just that little tidbit.
There you go.
Yeah, I guess I'm a visual learner, and just seeing it as a grid in my mind right there. Just as you were talking, I was literally doing multiplication in my head and visually laying it out.
Yeah, I was like, he's doing multiplication right now. He's not even listening.
Yeah,
he's doing 7 times 8. Like, I'm watching it.
Yeah, it just blew my mind. You just blew my mind. Yeah, I got to get a hold of this synthesis.
Yeah,
I need this in my life. One of the things that's interesting to me is always a lack of trust. Anytime you mention AI, tech, tools, digital tutor, there's just immediately that lack of trust. And you have proven results, you have people that are bought in. How do you build that trust with people who aren't familiar with the product or who are questioning that?
I think it's about having these types of conversations. I think there's some people that are thinking that AI tutor is going to be the ultimate panacea and it's going to solve every problem in education. And as I mentioned before, like, there are a lot of uses for an AI tutor, an AI study companion. There's also there's a lot of very popular math apps out there that are basically take a picture of a math problem, AI will look at it, it'll solve it for you, and it sort of takes away any type of problem solving ability that you have. We are not doing that. We don't have a homework helper built in. We don't have any type of that type of software. And that's a principled approach, because those apps are very successful. There's a lot of them out there. There's Photomath and some of these players out there that are just wildly successful, tons and tons and tons of users that are just taking pictures, getting math support. And not to say anything like negative about them, like kids may be getting those answers and saying, okay, now let me work through it myself and walk backwards from this answer and figure out how they got there. Or they may be just like sort of, okay, homework's done in 5 minutes versus in, a half hour, 40 minutes, whatever. But we're not doing those kinds of things. And like I said, where we use the AI is only in the places that we feel it makes sense. So those personalization pieces, we're not storing any data, by the way. So it's not like we know your kid's name and their favorite color and all these things. It's stored within the session, but it's not like we don't have some database of all these, users. So I know that's an issue with a lot of people with privacy with AI. And when we send anything out to AI, we're always like, before it goes out, it's like, instead of saying Jim, we're saying like the student. So we're like erasing all the parts that say, Jim likes the color blue. We say the student likes the color blue. And then it comes back and we replace the student with Jim. And so nothing's being sent to AI. So we're very careful about those kinds of things. We don't want to send any type of information out there. One of our engineers could speak to this a lot more clearly. I just know, like, yeah, no privacy concerns. Like, as to all the technical aspects, that's about as deeply as I understand it, is like nothing gets sent out with personal information. It gets translated into generic, send out, comes back, translated back into specific. So in any case, from a privacy standpoint, we're not allowing this to happen. From like a sort of, can I just use AI to like tell me the answers to things? Like, that's not how we're handling it. And then in terms of even like the language that it uses and how it speaks to you, like, almost everything is going to be passing through a human filter or be written by humans, more likely be written by humans completely. And so that's one way that we handle it. It's like, there are AI elements. We are certainly leveraging the tools where they become relevant and where they do things better than we could do as people. But this is not like some LLM wrapper, a thin wrapper that goes around ChatGPT and then ChatGPT just teaches you with a better interface. That's not how we're building this thing. This thing is being built in a way that's really conscious of what's the best way to teach math. And one of the things about that as well is like I said, it's bidirectional. And there's not many products out there that are. And so the training data that even an LLM has on like, well, what would a student say in this type of situation? Or if a student was confused about this, what should the best teacher in the world say? Like, they don't have that data. They don't know. They know, like, here's how you teach some generic student how to multiply by sixes, because I've scraped a bunch of YouTube videos and a bunch of lectures and a bunch of math textbooks and math worksheets. But it's like, well, what if the kid makes this common mistake, or what if they have this problem with it? How would you teach them? Like, where's the touch point where they develop, their misunderstanding can be figured out, and we can say like, oh, actually try this strategy. You're really close. Try this strategy. Try looking at it this way. Try visualizing it. Let me pull up something for you to see, for you to touch. Like, the LLMs don't have that training data, so they can't do any of that. So all that stuff has to be hard coded. It has to be like craftsmanship, artisanal, which is how we think about developing the product and the curriculum. Is not like teach kid how to multiply by sixes and ChatGPT spits out an answer and we plug it into the tutor. Like, that's not happening at all. It's like not even close. It's like, if that was the case, we'd have 10,000 lessons in a week and they'd all be bad. And so, to your point earlier, Jim, about, slow is fast. If we were to utilize GPT for a lot of this stuff, we'd end up with fast is slow, because we'd have a lot of stuff and we'd have to go in and we'd have to fix all the problems and all the poor intuition and all these things. So it's like, yeah, we could generate 1,000 lessons from ChatGPT, but they'd all be garbage. And then we'd lose these really important and special things that we have about the tutor that can only come through like the love and the care of the people that work on the product, and will never come through some generic LLM output. So anyway, I'm kind of bearish on if all that didn't convince people, like I'm pretty bearish on the LLM's ability to be able to teach any type of physical kinds of things to young kids who just can't like read paragraphs upon paragraphs upon paragraphs and then immediately grok the mathematical intuition that's underneath it. I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe we're a long ways away. Like, I try to have ChatGPT, new image generation is fantastic, but I try to have it like generate an animation, for example, of a pulley, and it can't do it. And there's other platforms that can. So you say, ChatGPT, make a pulley, pass that off to another platform, make it an animation, pass it off to another platform, do this, and then make sure like the mathematical concepts are all right along the way, and then make sure it's actually teaching. It's like you'll be spending an hour tinkering across all these different platforms just to get this pulley animation that may or may not even like convey the proper physics, the proper, math that would go with it. So I'm sort of bearish on that in the near term, and maybe even in the long term. So we're not relying on LLMs to do much of that. That's the short answer. You want to clip this up, it's just like, no, LLMs, they can't do it. There you go.
When you talk about noise around AI in schools, some of it hopeful, some of it fearful, what's the synthesis narrative there in addressing that? And then what's the role of educators?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't want to like generalize for all educators. I'm sure there's some out there that are saying, yeah, this is fantastic. It's great for generating, reading passages. It's great for generating quizzes. It's great for a lot of things. Like Magic School is a great example. Like, they have a lot of different tools built out for teachers that will help teachers become 10x teachers. Just like we talk about AI making software engineers 10x software engineers. Like, I think that AI will help make teachers 10x teachers, and for certain subjects and certain age groups, it'll make kids 10x students. Like I said, I don't think AI is there for elementary math. So Synthesis Tutor is trying to make you a 10x student, and we're leveraging AI where it makes sense and nowhere else. In terms of how teachers want to leverage these tools, there's always some resistance about, here's the new tool to use, like on top of the million other tools and on top of the million other things that you have to do on a daily basis. Also figure out where you can spend 15 minutes of the day, using this tool. And so that's going to be the case across the board with any new tool, whether it's AI or just a new piece of software or whatever. It's always hard to get people to adopt, especially teachers, when it's top down. And so our approach is very much bottom up. Like, a lot of the times that when we get into schools, it's because there's some parent, some teacher that's used Synthesis Tutor with their kid, and they've said like they've seen amazing results and they want to get it for their entire school or their entire district or their entire classroom or whatever. And that's typically how we see it. And I think that type of organic bottom up approach is probably the best way for now. It's just hard to get any type of like top down adoption. You can do it, obviously, and we are doing it right now. We have a partnership with the government of Oklahoma. We have a partnership with the sovereign nation that's happening, and so we are doing that. But we're conscious of the idea that there's a learning curve, and that there are adoption barriers just that are general, not specific to synthesis. And so we try to make it extremely accessible and just focus on like, this is a 10x tool. This is a tool that's going to enhance your learning. Like, you don't have to come up with 5 different activities for 5 different ability levels for your small groups. You can give them Synthesis Tutor. It's going to meet them exactly where they're at their ability level for each group. So you don't have to worry about setting anything up, assigning lessons. It's going to do all that handling for you. And so I think that pitch works very well, is that, yeah, you're in a 3rd grade classroom. You've got kids on a kindergarten level. You got kids on a 5th grade level. Like, you cannot be expected as a teacher sometimes you are, but you should not be expected to have different materials. You got 4 stations. You need different materials at each station for each different group. You have to rotate them out. You're scrambling around, and then you've got a group for yourself. It's like, man, that is hard. And the tutor sort of covers that. It's like, put one station, put all the stations while you work independently with a group on Synthesis Tutor, and you don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. And so that's how we try to explain it to the teachers. And that's what resonates well with teachers, is that this is really a tool to like take time, reduce your planning time, reduce your stress, reduce the number of things you have to manage, the number of decisions that you have to make on a daily basis. Synthesis will free you up. It'll free up your planning time. We all know planning time is sort of very rarely will you get the time to plan during your planning time. It's more like take a breath time, but breathe, be able to breathe, be able to take that time for yourself, because the tutor is doing a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to this differentiation that is only getting exacerbated, only getting worse, on a year-to-year basis. So that's what I would say is like, that's how we typically pitch it. That's what we hear from teachers when we're in the classroom, is that this is what this tool really helps us do, is it frees us up. It's like a TA. It's like having another person in the room. So I'd say that's the take. As to how that relates to AI in general, like I said, we're sort of in this quasi AI bucket. AI in general, like I tend to think that it does require some oversight. It does require you to be like, is it teaching correctly? Are kids using the tools in a responsible way? So I would say, like, I can't speak to that so much, because we sort of exist in this like in between of software that's very personal and human developed with AI tools that are built in. So sorry, another long answer that doesn't really answer it as best as I can, man.
I love it. We're at like 54 minutes at this point, so clearly I'm digging what we're talking about. I'm going to move into some kind of like Thinkering style questions here. At Thinkering, we're building a movement of learners and educators that are driven by curiosity. One of our mantras is curiosity propels change. So there's that like, connection and real world relevance is super important to what we're doing. How does Synthesis align with that vision?
The connection and real world relevance. Well, we try to build everything inside of this lens of connection and real world relevance. Like we certainly don't want it to feel irrelevant, right? Like the alternative is terrible. And so we don't want to like take the approach of like, well, you're going to have to, when you're working as a cashier one day, you're going to have to calculate change, which is like what I was told growing up. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. It's ambitious. Thanks. And so we don't want to do that. And we don't want to be like, well, when you're working as a financier one day, you're going to have to calculate. It's like, okay, we get it. Money. All right. Yeah. That's the economics piece from, local to global to home economics, whatever. Like that's not the relevance piece. What we're trying to do is like make it relevant to the students. Like if you can't be totally like, and this will apply in this situation, which always feels contrived in my opinion, you can at least make it fun and understandable and about pattern matching. And so when you start to see some of the math in this way, where like we were doing with the square numbers, for example, then it becomes a pattern that you can recognize in other places. And it becomes even like a more general kind of way of thinking of like, oh, I can think about things visually. I can see things this way. I can manipulate things and choose how I want to see it and how I want to solve a problem. And I can be strategic. And so I think that's more of the answer in terms of like relevance, is like, it's about a way of thinking. It's about a way of processing and seeing the world that is not necessarily like codified in a textbook or about, studying for a test. It's about like growing your own abilities and progressing through things that may seem advanced, building confidence very quickly. Like I said, you can go from a kindergarten level to like a third grade level, like very, very quickly in Synthesis Tutor, and also like incrementally to a way that you don't feel like you're like moving way too fast. You're like, whoa, I have this real sense of accomplishment, of achievement, that I was able to do these things and see these things. And then when you sort of come up and look around, you're like, oh, wow, like my older brother who's in third grade, like we're doing the same thing right now. That's wild. Like I have it in me. I have something in me. So I think that maybe that's one of the pieces as well, is like there's this intuition piece, this way of thinking piece, but also this belief in yourself that you're able to achieve these things. It just takes, a certain way of doing it, a certain way of thinking about it. But the expectations of the world or of school don't always have to match up to what you're capable of. Like you should push yourself to what you're capable of and go beyond it. And I think that's something that's embedded in Synthesis Tutor. It's not as like conscious, but it's certainly a secondary effect of learning this way, is that you do develop like a real sense of confidence and a real sense of ability. And like I said, if you do look around, you're like, oh, I'm 2 standard deviations beyond the mean. Isn't that incredible? And obviously that's not going to translate. You're not going to say something like that, but like you'll recognize like, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm capable. I've got something in me, and all it takes is some supportive and trusting person or agent or whatever to be there, and anything's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember we talk about curriculum and being relevant to real world stuff. The trigonometry example I was always good with is like how to determine if I'm ever lost in the woods and I want to know how high that cliff face is, and and like things like that. And I'm like, that's if I'm lost in the woods, I'm worried about not the cliff face. Where's the cliff bar? Like I want to be able to eat.
Right. Totally.
What's the story that Synthesis would like to tell in 5 years? Looking back, what's the story that you all want to be able to say like, yeah, we did that?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the general story is like we changed the state of education in the world. That realistically, it's like you do not have to spend all this time learning. You can spend time pursuing your interests, being outside, doing the things that make you happy, doing the things that are fulfilling, because we freed that up for you, because you've learned, 20 years of math in 20 minutes a day for a few years. And then you have all this freedom now that's available to you. So I think that's the story that we want to tell and that's what we're striving towards, is freeing up people, whether it's teachers, whether it's students, whether it's like the entire education system, just freeing up people to be able to have the fundamentals covered, understand what they need to understand, and to have a really deep grasp of it, not so they can go on to become mathematicians or engineers. Sure, if they want to do that, fantastic. We certainly need, scientific minded people, STEM people. That's certainly part of it. But it's also just to free them up to like go touch grass, be out there, be in nature, do the things that make them happy, and not be having to spend 8 hours a day in school and 2 hours a day doing homework, and losing childhood, having more opportunity for childhood memories, having more opportunity for experiences. And so I think that that's the ultimate goal, is to teach this stuff as efficiently as possible in a way that's not just like, look how fast you can learn it for fast sake. It's like, no, so you have that time for yourself now, and to pursue, beauty and joy and wonder. And those are the things that I think we're aiming for.
But for the educators and families like listening, what's the one small step that they can take today to just explore the kind of learning that Synthesis makes possible?
Yeah, they can go to synthesis.com/tutor, synthesis.com/teams for summer. We have synthesis.com/summer camp. And that's going to be focused on our teams program, which, like I said, is like a collaborative problem solving for really intelligent, ambitious kids. The high achievement of that is called a super collaborator. So it's somebody that can make any team that they are on better. And so I spent a lot of time talking about Tutor today, but Teams is a fantastic product. It's got tremendous, tremendous value. And it's mostly, like I said, it's kids that are together solving problems, making decisions, grappling with ethical, strategic, all sorts of dilemmas, and coming together as a team to make solutions in real time, solve problems, and it's all game based. So I should say that too. So it's you have these scenarios that are constructed in the games that require teamwork, coordination, all these types of things that are, you have to be friends. People have to like you in order to listen to you. So we like to think of it as like Tutor is the hard skills and Teams is the soft skills. And Teams, like I said, has a summer camp throughout the whole summer. It's all digital, just to be clear on that. And so you would join kids from around the world, solve these problems, play these games, come up with, just make new friends. So I would say just go to synthesis.com, like I said, /tutor, /teams, /summer camp, and you can find us there. You can follow us on social. It's usually Synthesis School. Sometimes it's 2 S's, sometimes it's 1, but if you search Synthesis, you'll find us, I'm sure. And I hope that a lot of people check us out, and I hope more so that we can provide the value that we're trying to provide to the world for the families that are listening to Thinkering.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for being here and the work you're doing to change the story of education. And to everyone listening out there, we'll put the links in the description so you can go check it out. The summer camp sounds really cool. I might need to join that.
It's 8 to 14, Jim. 8 to 14. Sorry, man. But you can always use the tutor. Yes.
Love the term Thinkering, and we'll definitely use it in my classroom. The kids will love it.
This is where we can be that peer support network with each other. When the big picture clicks, it's beautiful when you get administrators and teachers together.
You can't be a leader of other people if you can't first lead yourself, right?
helps the educator have a very clear and structured framework.
Becomes this real community hub. If you're a great educator, you're looking for the most powerful moment. Can we inspire kids to believe that the world needs who they were made to be?
I hope that you guys continue to uphold that legacy and continue, finding kids like you.